The Atlanta Hawks, a team who just a year ago was very startling when we all looked at the move for DeJounte Murray and then trading him away again. But now after this free agency and acquiring guys like Kristaps Porzingis for very low price, Ricochet returning, Jalen Johnson coming back from injury, and an Eastern Conference with two of its top teams injured or depleted, this Hawks team is looking to make some legit noise. So today we are going to do a deep dive into this Hawks team and see just how good they will really be. And of course, you can't talk about an Atlanta Hawks push if you don't talk about the guy who they've put all their chips in on. And that, of course, is Trae Young. So the Atlanta Hawks, since acquiring Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kristaps Porzingis, have seemingly put in their idea to the league that they are keeping Trae Young. They are not necessarily looking to blow it all up and to try and get rid of everything, but instead they're trying to build an optimal team around their star caliber player. And I think if they want to maximize that star caliber player, I think that they need to change the way that they're attacking their game plan, which is, I think Trae Young should become a lower volume scorer. Now, obviously, I'm not saying he should be taking like 10 shots a game and go completely like Steve Nash, but I think if he brought it down to about 16 shots a game and we maybe brought down that 3-point volume just a little bit, I think that it would be very evident that Trae can then focus on being that playmaker and facilitator for Jalen Johnson, for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, for Porzingis now, who you can run the pick and roll and the pick and pop with. I think that for this team, the 30 points a game with 10 assists, Trae Young might have to stop being a thing. Now, obviously, he's been at 26 to 25. I agree. I get that point. But I think the idea is if you see Trae Young come down and he's at 23 even, or 22, but he's giving you 22 and 12 or 22 and 13, I think you would see this Hawks team overall look a lot better. And then at the end of the day, Trae is still gonna be your clutch guy. You need a bucket, give the ball to Trae Young. You're in a close game, Trae has that switch where he'll just turn it, and next thing you know, he's taken over a game that the Hawks had no business really staying in, and they can pull it out. I think that's how you got to utilize Trae Young, because then everybody else can get going so that defenses are trying to adjust to that, and then they go, oh crap, now we got to deal with Trae who's starting to go off. And that's where I think that Trae Young can help take this Hawks team to a whole higher level. If you're the Hawks, you haven't really been competitive in the playoffs since 2021, where you made the conference finals. And I think for them, with this team, bare minimum, I think they want to see the second round. I really do. I think they want to see themselves in that semifinals, maybe even get to the conference finals again and make a push. And that's where I think Trae Young needs to make that jump. But I only think that jump's going to work if we continue to see greatness from Jalen Johnson. I think Jalen Johnson, after coming off his injury, is going to show us something even better. So Johnson, before getting injured, unfortunately, and missing out what could have been his breakout season, was giving you about 19, 10, and 5. And I think the thing that's going to work out for them is I do think the three ball is going to come up. I think, right, like players can have rough stretches, like that's bound to happen. But I think now with, a guy like Porzingis to help out space the floor, with Zachary Ricochet having another year under his belt, Dyson Daniels is still there. Obviously, you have Trae Young. I think Jalen Johnson is going to look even better. And I think if Trae does, sort of what I'm recommending and taking a bit of a step back as a scorer, I think you're going to see Johnson crush 20 points. I think he's going to get you 23 to 24 a night. That's where I think this team can kind of take things up to another level because, again, I think he's a good point forward. Now, obviously, Trae is still going to be your primary ball handler, but I think if he's out of the game, like you're sitting him for rest, whatever, Jalen could do a good job taking over. And then even with Trae Young, he's a great secondary facilitator. So Trae doesn't always need to have the ball in his hands. And then at that point, the defenses, can try and shift a little bit. You have to force them to do something just a little bit different once in a while. I think for Jalen Johnson specifically, I would, again, continue working on the three ball. I don't know. I wouldn't go crazy and try and add a whole lot. But I think, again, just stay the course. And I think Jalen Johnson is going to show you why he's so special, especially since he hasn't even turned 24 yet. I think his offensive ability is legit. And I think especially when you look at the way that he's diversifying his game and getting to the rim more and more. Because again, in the 36 games he played this year, he took 218 shots at the rim, where at 52 games last year, he took 281. So already in that sample size, we saw he was going to clear that number. I think that's where things can get really, really good for this team. If they have Jalen Johnson as a downhill threat, I think that's where we can get even more interesting for a guy like Trae, because again, we know he loves that PNR. We know he loves to operate in space, and Jalen Johnson can still shoot it, and I think he can definitely turn that around and show you what he can do. And then I actually want to talk about someone I've mentioned already in this video, and that is Zachary Riddled, who I think as a #1 overall pick, right, a lot of people thought he was very lackluster, but honestly, he had a sneaky good rookie season, and we're going to get into that now. Zachary Riddled is a player who I believe has, in some ways, exceeded his expectations. And I know what you might be saying, but Emster, he's a #1 overall pick. Guys, let's just be honest. When that draft class was going on, a lot of people were saying it was a weak class. They just were. We're just going to keep it honest. That class was not very highly regarded. But what Riddled's numbers were for his rookie season, right? Played 75 games, which I think is already huge, right? Like, he's showing you he's going to be a healthy player. And the other thing I found super interesting is when you look at his cleaning the glass, his overall scoring profile is actually pretty strong. Now, some things they're going to have to work on immediately. He's got to be better at the rim. I mean, you're 6'9" and you're 62% at the rim. That is abysmal. It just is. That's just not acceptable. But I love that he's 42% in the midi. And even better, 44% at the corner three, which, like I talked about, if you want Jalen Johnson to become an even better role man, if you want Jalen Johnson to get downhill more and, attack with Trae Young even, who, Trae loves to get to that float game. He loves to get downhill. Riddle then as a corner shooter is a sniper. I think that's huge. And he's certainly no slouch on defense. Now, again, is he a Thompson twin? No, but you don't have to be a good enough wing defender in the league. You just don't. And I think the way that this Hawks team has sort of built around Trae now is where things are so interesting. But I think Riddle is showing signs of being able to get his game up. And again, I'm sort of predicating some of these insights into the idea that Trae is taking a bit of a step back as a scoring option. But I think Riddle can crack about 16. I really do. I think he's going to get you about 3-4 more points a game, unless he goes through, a complete sophomore slump, which is also possible. But I think we saw sort of in the beginning of his rookie year, he already sort of hit a wall, and we've seen him overcome that. So I think that this Hawks team is pretty nice, and we're going to get into that right now and talk about how good is this Hawks team really. So I've been able to now go over all three of the big players for this Hawks team, but I didn't really talk about their big additions. You have Kristaps, you've got Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Nickeil, by the way, who's going to give you very, very good defense and can spray that three ball, which is huge for when you're playing with a guy like Trae Young. You still have Dyson Daniels, a DPOY caliber player at guard. Like, that is extremely valuable when, again, you have one of the worst defensive players in the league, if not the worst, in Trae Young. And it's not all his fault. Part of it is, guy given height. It just is what it is. I think that this team and this Hawks team, I have to give some credit to. Their GM and their owner did a good job of not quickly buckling this, going, you know what, we're going to listen to what Emster told us before. Let's just give up on Trae, go with Jalen as our centerpiece with Dyson and Okongwu, and we just kind of ride it out. They said Boston's hurt, Indiana's hurt, Milwaukee's roster isn't that great, and aside from like a Knicks or a Cavs, who neither of which look completely unstoppable, why can't we just get into the race? Now, again, would I bet on this team? Like, would I tell you guys in a couple months when we get to that part of the season, guys, it's time to put it in on the Hawks winning the East, getting to the championship, and they might even steal? No, I'm sorry, Hawks fans, I can't go that far. But I do think they can make it out the first round. I actually do. I think if they're healthy and if things are looking like they should, and again, with Boston and with Indiana both injured, if the Hawks get like the 4 seed, they play like a Miami. You get a Miami, you get even like a Boston, right? The injured, depleted Boston. You get a Pacers. You get one of those teams. I do believe that they can take that round. Now, would I bet on them against a team like the Knicks? I don't know. Now, that matchup is interesting, but I think this team has done they have done a very good job, at least so far on paper, right? There's a chance, I guess, when we see it in person and it doesn't work at all, that I'll have to revisit this topic. But I think they've done a good job of maximizing the Trae Young time that they have left. And maybe this is their way of sort of going, if we can't get far or do anything with this, okay, we're good. We gave our hardest effort to build around Trae, and we just cannot do it, and we cannot win. But let me know what you guys think about this Hawks team. Do you think they're a sleeper in the East? Do you think they're a sleeper to win the championship? Do you guys think that this team isn't really that good and everyone's going to kind of get shown the light once the season comes around? As always, guys, this was Mr. No Soups. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate each and every one of you. The comments have been, off the line. You guys have been going crazy. Some of you literally. But I've been loving the dialogues. I've been loving the conversations and the engagement and the interactions. So as always, guys, this was Mr. No Soups. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about the Hawks. And you guys have a beautiful rest of your day. Peace out.